Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Build Erebor. Now last episode was a lot of fun. We finally got to start work on the entrance to the mountain itself, the way in to Dale, the way into Erebor. And as you can see in the background, I've made a few alterations to it. I haven't built the dwarf statues yet, but there's a bunch of flaming braziers and a few flags at the top as a little decoration. Now, by and large, the whole town of Dale and the mountain needs a lot of touching up, but that's something I'm going to come back to once we have more of the town filled up. We'll need trees around the whole of Dale, a bit more forests around the edge, and a lot more natural decoration on the mountain. I'm thinking about maybe adding cobblestone to the stone to give it a bit of grain. But tonight we're looking at the rich district, and I need to start filling up Dale with more important buildings, and why not start with the rich area with the mansions and all the big villas, and where all the rich people live. So the plan is to put down the loose foundations and get the theme and the style right for how we're going to do the mansions. And then once I've got all the foundations in the rich district put down, get to work and start building as many of those mansions as I can. Now I'm here using wool to map out the foundations initially. The black wool blocks you see there are to mark the road. I need the gap between the walls to be big enough for a road to get in of decent size. The red wool marks out the turrets for the wall. The blue wool marks out the walls themselves, and the yellow wool marks out where the mansion itself is going to be. Now I built these kind of tall, kind of chunky, crenellated towers initially on the red wool, but once I put them all in place I realised, hang on a sec, these are going to be even bigger than the house. They're way too big, they've got to go. So I took out the red wool, and I cut down to these kind of 3x3 sandstone turrets in the end, but even they were a little bit too big, and I think I'll probably cut down to a 2x2 one in the end. But once the turrets for the walls were in place, I started to connect the dots and put in the walls in between the turrets and the house. And to separate those, I'm using dark stone brick separated by etched sandstone. And what I'll do is I'll fill in the gaps in between, the air in between, with some iron fence posts. Then it was time to build the foundations of the mansion itself, the manor itself, replace the floor with some light wood, and then start to dig away the stone brick to put down the road that will lead up to the front door for this house. Then once the cobblestone half blocks were in place, it was time to crack on with the build itself. Now here you see the finished foundations with a few modifications made to the walls around the outside. Now I used half slabs on the tips of the dark stone fence posts, but that's something I'll come back later and change. Now, with the theme and style for the first mansion in place, I took those ideas, took those designs, and went down to the lower levels and started to map out with sandstone and darkstone brick areas for the rest of the houses. Now, I wasn't using wool this time, so I just have to remember what I was building. But as you can see there, I think it's quite plain to see that the two large squares are going to be large kind of sandstone castle turrets. The other areas are going to be the mansion itself, the house itself, and then the fence around the edge. Now I just put down fence and turrets for this foundation in the middle you see here, because initially this was going to be a house, but what I realised is there wasn't really enough space inside the fences to fit a house in there, so that would later become is a kind of garden, a recreation area for people to come and relax and chill out. And again, I put down some more foundations down here at the bottom. And once the foundations were in place, I was slowly weaving inside and in between the foundations to build the roads that separate the mansions from each other. Again, filling in sandstone turrets and walls for this, the final foundation. And then putting down the walls of the house and coming around with darkstone brick and just filling in the loose gaps. Now I just put wall in for this last foundation at the back here, but this was big enough to fit a house inside, so the foundations for those went down as well. Now I wanted to bring down the level of some of these houses, so I copy and pasted these two mansions down here on the left, the foundations for the mansions on the left, and brought them down by I think about 2 blocks. Then I cut out some of the misplaced road and added a few stairs to get back up to the higher levels. And just basically went around tidying up the areas that I dislodged by lowering the levels. Then filled in the dirt with some cobblestone half blocks to make the roads, and and then went around to all the foundations and started putting down the dark stone brick fences on. It's looking pretty good so far. As the sun sets, I'm thinking that we're finally making progress on Dale, and getting the rich area intact and getting the rich area done is quite a big step, because unlike the slums area, I can pretty much afford to go hog wild with the houses here. I can make them as fancy and as lavish pretty much as I like. And so what I'm doing is I'm adding upside down stairs, sandstone stairs, to the top of the turret edges of the walls, just to make things look a little bit fancier. And as you can see, we're sticking with the same theme throughout all the houses and the grounds for all the villas and mansions around this area, just so that nothing looks too out of place. I mean, this isn't Hollywood where one house is bright green lime painted and some kind of new Art Deco, I don't know, fancy contemporary build. No, we're all using the same kind of sandstone and darkstone brick for all the mansions in this zone so that everything looks nice and similar. Like, I wanted to have like a walkout balcony. So you see here these 3 arches made out of sandstone that people can just come and walk out on and just admire the view. Unfortunately, the view does look down to the poor district, so maybe the view won't be that great, but if they can look over the peaks of those poor houses, they will be able to see the luscious lake and the shining silver water. Now, there were 2 ways I could have done the red nether brick roof. I could have copied the theme for the cheap houses and the shops, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go for like a normal kind of triangular peaked roof. I thought that would make a much richer looking district. And so that's what I've gone for with the dark stone brick here and the red nether brick steps. You can see a very deliberate triangular peaked roof. Then adding in dirt blocks and hatches as flower boxes. And coming around to the front of the house and slowly decorating things. Now I wanted the entrance to look pretty cool, so I used light wood blocks for fencing, and then I took out the stone brick here and replaced it with grass. And already you can see just changing that stone brick to grass has vastly improved the visual aesthetic of the house. Then I changed the blocks bordering the grass and the road with light wooden steps, threw down some hedges, some bone meal for grass, 2 more white birch trees, or is it spruce, I forget, white trees at least, and hey presto, I think the first mansion is almost complete. Just tinkering around finally with the windows and the sides. And there we go, the first mansion. Oh yeah, this looks pretty badass. I like the flower boxes on the 2nd floor. And I think the triangular peaked roof does actually work quite well for this house. And of course, adding a bit of nature to the mix, adding those trees and the grass and the hedges really helps make it look a lot more friendly and a lot more, warm. Right, so with the first house done, with the first mansion in place, I came down to this walled garden section, or rather we're making it a garden section, and began to put down grass, hedges and roses. Then I got a bit creative with the entrance and decided to make it 2 snakes, kind of snakes pointing each other, much like Conan. And then I dug away at the grass to put down a pond area and raised up a grass section that we put a tree on just to make things look a bit more, funky. Now I'm using quartz blocks for the fountain, but end stone to border the pond itself. then dark wooden steps to border the tree platform. I put in some cobblestone half blocks, some more hedge, a bench with signs for arm rails, a few more roses, and there we go. With the fence posts in place, I think the garden is looking pretty swish. All that's left to do now is to cap the fence around the edge with iron pressure pads and add a couple of lilies just to finish that pond off. Now that's 2 done. We've got the garden and the mansion on the tall section. Now I came around to the largest, arguably, of the houses and began to build up using the same theme that we had on the first mansion. I just copied the style with the upside down stone brick steps you see there, the upside down wooden steps, and the dark stone brick. But for the roof, I wanted to do something a little bit different for this house. I wanted to do it much like I did the inn or the tavern at my village build back on the kingdom. So you can see here, I've gone for a 3-peaked effect with the central peak being taller than the 2 peaks on the side. Now getting the peaks to interact with each other where they met was a little tricky, to say the least, but I managed it in the end. As I finish up the roof, you can see that I think it looks pretty cool. Now I came around the front, modified the windows a bit, using again the same style of windows that we have on the other house, and again flower boxes with hatches to border those Now hatches are a great decorative tool because what you can do is you can stick them on the side of walls, close them, and they just look like kind of pressed down. They're like kind of half blocks sideways on of wood, and they look pretty cool and they make great decorations for the side of flower boxes. Then I came around the edge and I did the same thing that I'd done with the garden on the first mansion. I filled it with grass, put hedges around the edge, and used wooden fence posts to border the house. And I got a bit creative here because there's a kind of like a statue section in the middle, and I wanted to have something fancy, some kind of fancy sculpture. So you can see here I've built this kind of snaky kind of weavy vine that's holding a block of diamond in the middle. And then those white trees finish off the build, and here we are. As you kind of zoom in on Dale, it's looking pretty good. I really do like the entrance to the Erebor there, the dwarf gates. They